CNA's Roland spoke to the CEO of Air New Zealand to talk about the recovery and how the carrier is working to diversify its offerings.
You know, we pride ourselves on not only doing a good job at the front of the plane, but also in all parts of the plane, the middle and the back. And it's where most passengers travel. So a lot of flights you get on to New Zealand or from New Zealand are long. A lot of them are travelling at night. So here's an option for a customer who doesn't want to pay the extra for either in a business seat or premium economy seat, to pay just an economy fare, but for a period of time rent a lie flat bed, in this case for a 4-hour option, on a 16, 17-hour flight.
Well, you're obviously listening to your customers, but were you listening about the pricing? I mean, $380 for 4 hours. I mean, it's not exactly the same as a flatbed business class, but still, I mean, are your customers willing to pay?
Well, we need to get you down there so that you can have a go on this. It's actually an incredible experience. You know, I climbed in one the other day. Plenty of space, very private. And you're going to sleep like a baby. It really is a terrific experience. In terms of pricing, we'll have to see how that goes. We have to hope to have it up and running in literally just over a year's time on flights to Chicago and New York. So let's see how it goes.
You've also revised your earnings outlook upwards this year. What's driving that?
Look, it's a good period to be an airline. You know, as I think about the business we're in, sort of 3 phases. We're into the second phase at the moment. The first was survive COVID. Tick, I think we've done that. The second one is enjoy the recovery. And that's really where Air New Zealand, and I think many airlines are at the moment. We're enjoying the recovery, not only enjoying being back flying, but frankly, you know, you've got a situation where demand exceeds supply, so that's driven pricing higher, profits are reasonably robust. The third phase, which is coming, is how do you sustain that? Because there's some interesting things coming our way. I think we're seeing a reasonable amount of cost pressure. Productivity becomes challenging in this environment. You've got more costs coming your way. The supply chain, instead of, if you like, offshoring, you're seeing some onshoring. And then, of course, you've got the cost of, carbon emissions also coming down the track. So it's an interesting period.
You mentioned costs. I mean, airlines traditionally have been able to predict a business year in advance, yet with the rise of jet fuel, for example, it's become more difficult with the war in Ukraine and other uncertainties. How are you coping?
You build that in and you hedge where you need to hedge. And we are an airline that tends to hedge for ticket sales that have occurred by and large. Jet fuel's currently running about 55-60% of where it was pre-COVID. It's actually come down from the highs that were there 6 months ago. It's not the only cost pressure we have. Labour, as I mentioned, has gone up. Catering's gone up. Passenger levies, airport landing fees. All of those things make for a different sort of environment. So you need to take that into account. How you deal with that, things like asset utilisation become very important. How many hours you've got your plane in the air. The productivity of your staff, making sure that as you bring them back, they're well trained, you give them digital capability so that you drive productivity. So all of those things become critical.
IATA released official results about the global outlook, and surprisingly to me was that Asia was still underperforming the rest of the world. Is this because the Chinese travelers haven't returned in the droves?
Yeah, I think, what you're seeing at the moment is, China, we got to January, a change in policy, that market has opened quite quickly. But, a lot of people over the previous 3 years, their passports have expired, they need to get a visa. And it's a big job getting all those renewals done. We're back flying daily into Shanghai, and what we're seeing is a gradual increase as people now are getting through the administrative process so they can travel. Japan, slightly differently, that's come back a bit quicker. But the Japanese, passengers still a little bit cautious, but what we're seeing is that is starting to grow. So let's be a little bit patient. I think in 6 months, I think we're going to be back, really full steam.
You also take decarbonizing very seriously. What efforts are you making towards that goal? How much of sustainable aviation fuel are you using? And will you also be switching to cleaner, more efficient planes?
This is such an important part of aviation today, the carbon emissions and how we go about solving that. We're taking a multifaceted approach to that, but there is no doubt that sustainable aviation fuel plays a major component, and that's because so much of our travel is long haul, and that really is the only viable solution at this point. So, we've got to work with all our partners to pull that together. I don't think that roadmap is 100% laid out at the moment. We have more demand than we have supply available, but we've set ourselves some ambitious goals. We'll go hard on that. In terms of other aspects that we're looking at, electric aircraft will be important. We hope to have commercial demonstrators in place by 2026.